Today, and we're going to talk about an all too familiar issue here in Nigeria, and it has to do with insecurity, how that has become endemic across the country, from the insurgency to banditry to the rising and resurging kidnappings across different parts of the country. Why is that, and why does it increasingly appear that this surmountable challenge is becoming insurmountable by the day, as many more Nigerians are continuously having to live in worry and fear of the unknown or the uncertainty about their safety, the safety of their lives, the safety of their property, the safety of their communities. Well, we're going to unpack some of these developments, especially also hear how the seat of power, the federal capital itself, has also been witnessing a resurgence of criminal activities, from the kidnappings to the robberies, and the sense that some areas are not particularly safe for some Nigerians to operate and reside in. And join us on the program to help unpack and navigate some of the issues is retired Wing Commander Musa Salmanu, who is joining us to help us understand the security angles as well as the complications of Nigeria's fight against insecurity. Wing Commander, thank you very much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and good morning, Nigerians.
Right, I have to ask this in the interest of full disclosure so Nigerians can understand. Usually when we have retired military men, they're usually old, in their 60s, and you know, you get to see the retired in their face.
Exactly.
You don't appear to fit, you know, that particular category. So explain to me how a apparently young, vibrant person is retired at this age.
Well, I tell people that I'm retired and perhaps tired.
Right.
Well, let me remove the tired. But you see, it's globalization. Everything is changing. So we have to be content with things not being the way they used to be before. If we have, or if our parents worked in the same places for 35 years, our generation is likely to work in places for less years, and more, our children or the generations after us are probably going to work even less. So it's the changing nature of work, or the workspace.
That I can understand.
We have to come to terms with that.
Okay, so does that mean that, you know, because times are changing, and then the military in particular, or the fight against insurgency in the last decade has been tough, and then this is actually taking a toll on prospective people who want to vie into the military positions that we have, or want to take up this fight against insurgency? So what are we doing wrongly that we have people who retire early enough? What is the problem?
So I think, let's not get this wrong. There is the military still remains, I think, one of the most sought after profession, because it's a humble profession. It's a profession that gives you the opportunity or the privilege to serve your country like no one else, because this is the only profession that the first thing that you do is to put your life online.
That statistics might be changing at this point.
Well, what any other thing is secondary. The first thing that you are conditioned, or that you have to condition your mind when joining the military, is that this could take your life. Right. It could involve you
dealing with the highest form of risk.
You're given, yes, the highest form of risk, but also the benefit, or what do I say, is that you are serving your country in the highest form, as far as I'm concerned, in the highest.
I mean, you lay your life on the line.
You lay your life.
There's nothing more you can give.
There's nothing more you can give beyond that. So there is still that. So, and you find young people, men and women, really trying to join. If you want to see how it is still the kind of go-to profession, go to anywhere that there's recruitment, whether it's for the officers or it's for the...
Unfortunately, I mean, part of what you're saying is true, but also the other reality is that many people see the Nigerian military or the Nigerian police or any other security outfit as just another job, because they are trying to get paid at the end of the day. But back to the main conversation here, which is Nigeria's unending battle with insecurity. From your years in service to now, where you're watching from the outside looking in, I know you still have friends in service, you're pretty much looking at some of these developments. What is your perspective from someone who used to be in the service and now from the outside looking in? What do you make of this endemic battle with insecurity and how it continues to pretty much permeate within the polity?
So what I say is changing times. Times are changing. We're becoming, when we say a global village, in the real sense, it's a global village. Happenings and situations in every part of the world affect every part of the world. Now, how they affect, or the level to which they affect any part of the world, is what matters, or is what differs from one country or from one geographical space to another. Now, so if you look at globally, you see that there is the shifting trend of conflict everywhere, from regular military to military, or one nation to another, to irregular fights between groups within the state, or that's non-state actors within the states themselves, fighting themselves, or them fighting the national armies or the national security forces. So that changing architecture means that the response has to change also. And whereas the military for a very long time is taught or is trained to fight its own type, kind of military to military
warfare.
Symmetric warfare. It is forced or foisted upon an asymmetric warfare. Now, with asymmetric warfare comes a lot of challenges. Even when you have the might, there are the issues of civilians that are caught in the fire. Because what asymmetry happens where there are people. Because the belligerents, that's the insurgents, or by whatever name they are, the target is the people. The people, soft targets, they go after soft target. In fact, they attack those targets because they are weak. When they attack those targets, they are in a way trying to challenge the stateness of the state. Because the state is supposed to, by the social contract, the state is supposed to protect its citizens. So what these people do is to delegitimize the government of the day or the state in the eyes of the people, to make the narrative that the state cannot protect you. And so they do that in all sorts of ways. We have seen how it has metamorphosized from one place to the other, changing dynamics or changing nature depending on which group is involved, but all of them, by whatever name they are, whether it's Ansaru,
Al-Qaeda,
Iswa, Boko Haram, or anywhere, the ultimate aim is to delegitimize the state, to make it weak or appear weak, to make the people feel insecure and unable to go about their day-to-day businesses, and to make the state to lose that capacity to be the sole wielder of those.
But why does this challenge of insecurity? Because we have one of the largest armies on the continent. We have one of the biggest police force on the continent. We're the biggest economy on the African continent. So we do have some capacity to deal with this, isn't it? But why does it appear that this surmountable challenge is looking insurmountable? So
sometimes we narrow security to think it's a matter of the gadgets. Or the number of people that we put on the road. But I tell you, security encompasses more than that. Now, in terms of trying to kind of put concept or context to this, the physical security has changed to human security. That it's not about protecting, say, this building. Yes, it's part of it, but it's wider than that. It's about the people that are in this building and the surroundings that are in this building.
Intelligence also.
So not only that, I don't want to look at it from physical security aspects, but I want to tell you that as the world continues, economies continue to go down. That's yes, we might have the biggest economy, but if you compare the standard of living, because of the number of population and so many other factors, you find out that the standard of living is going down. People are losing jobs. People are getting into. So there are so many push and pull factors that ensure that the number of people that get into criminality is increasing. With that comes the challenge of number of security forces are not able single-handedly to cater for all that. So what I'm saying is that security, rather than us saying that it's only one person's responsibility or a certain agency and so on, it's a collective responsibility. That's one. Then secondly, a lot of us are not saying something when we should say something.
To the
What do
right
I mean?
authority.
Yes, to the right authority. Now, you walk around Abuja, as simple as walking around Abuja. If you are not careful, you're going to fall into a manhole. Why? Because all those coverings have been stolen by someone. Some are right in front of some people's houses. So how come...
Commander, a lot of people will say, listen, I agree with you, but it sounds like you're victim blaming at this point. Because we do have people who are commissioned, trained, who have the eye, who have the expertise to understand this, security situation, isn't it? And Nigerians, while they are in a position to sometimes divulge certain information that could help in addressing these gaps, cannot be solely blamed for why we are unable to sort out Boko Haram, ISWA, banditry, Godogide, all these terrorist activities that is keeping Nigerians awake. I mean, Nigerians have given their allegiance to the state to protect them. Surely we can't blame average Nigerians for this pervasive insecurity. So
it's even a wrong perception to say anybody is blaming Nigerians, as that's the ordinary Nigerian. What we're saying is a collective responsibility. I agree that within collective responsibility, some other people have higher responsibility. Because if you're trained, if you're equipped, if you're paid to do something, and you've signed that you will do it, you have a higher call to do that. However, what I'm saying is that, yes, those have their kind of the responsibility that they have to, and they cannot be absolved of that responsibility if it goes wrong. Because if we get it right, they are the ones to take the praise. So they are not, it's not to abdicate them from that responsibility. What I'm saying is that in addition to them manning up, in addition to them raising up to the expectations, we have a duty, all of us. So I'm just trying to say that security, yes, we have prioritized responsibility, but it's a collective responsibility. Let's get more involved. Let's be more vigilant. Because how many, you said, look at the size of Nigeria, look at the size of population, look at the size of things that have to be guarded, and how many are our security men?
Okay, so we're having a conversation recently about the security situation, and when you look at the far northern part of the country and other parts of the country, because I don't want to streamline it to the northern part of the country. What we're seeing right now is everybody's having their own fair share of insecurity. You go to the southeastern part of the country, there's the Ibubago, who
the
is
IPOB, the ESN concerns.
ESN concerns, and then you go to the northwest and northeast and all of that. There are different security concerns. Even the Federal Capital Territory is not safe. Now we're having these divergent issues, and then we're having even the Federal Capital Territory, that used to be a safe haven for some people, is now experiencing some sort of insecurity. What do you think is the issue at the moment?
So I think sometimes we don't learn from, that's as a country or as a people, we don't learn from others or even learn from our own situations. I think what over the years we have assumed that Abuja is some kind of impenetrable entity away from everyday reality of Nigeria. Now, when people, or when either bandits or whoever are dislodged from elsewhere, where do they go to? Right? We have to ask that question. When the people terrorizing the states surrounding Abuja, that's Niger, Kaduna, parts of Kaduna, Nasarawa, and Kogi, when they are dislodged from those locations, where do they go to? They have to look for what you call the safe havens. Now, and the likelihood that they are going to go to the villages or the area councils surrounding Abuja municipal, the Abuja Federal Capital, is very high. So what we should have done, or what I am sure a lot of, there has been an anticipation in that, and I'm sure that a lot has been done on that, but a lot needs to be done. And this is where it still goes back to the fact that the community has to get involved, everybody. Now, I might be a security officer that is stationed in my duty station, coming from where I am, but until I might not know everybody that is the new person that is coming to that area. How well do we, as members of that community, interrogate people, new people that are coming into that.
But some people might just argue that that hasn't worked effectively in the last decade, because in some communities we have whistleblowers, we have community leaders who identify strangers when they come into this community. But what happens? Some of these insurgents still come back for this community leaders or even the people who have blown these whistles to take them out. Take, for instance, at Abaji now, where we have this insecurity problem, I think about last year, where a whole community was sacked. I mean, nobody was staying there when Trust TV actually went there to make their findings. And then we have people who have been reporting to the police. I beg to differ. The security presence in that place is nothing to write home about. And this is a community where a lot of people have been reporting to the police about some of the unusual things that have been happening in that community. Do you think that the security agents are doing enough when there is somebody saying something to the right authority?
So do I think they're doing enough? No. There is a lot of room to improve. Are they doing anything? Yes. Right? Because if they are, it's just like a football match. The number of attacks that go to the goal post and do not, in real sense, make any nothing. It's just for analysis sake. Goal attempts at goal 50. But nobody writes that at the end of the day. To go to the table, you have to say how many goals scored, right? So every day there are attacks that are being thwarted, attacks that are being kind of found out, and people nipped in the bud before it happens. They don't get to the news because obviously we say that's what they're supposed to do. Now, out of 10, for example, for every one successful attack is what that is said, because bad news sells, and so on and so forth. So are we doing enough? No. Are there lapses whereby people report some of these instances or incidences and not much is done? I say yes, there are those instances. But is there anything at all that is done? I'll say yes. Now, the question is, how do we improve on that? And that is where I come in and say, okay, all of us have a duty. That's the police, the military or security agencies, to improve in terms of response time. We keep saying that response timing is very, very slow. When an incident happens or when you try to protect and perchance one of those incidents is able to happen, how long does it take you to respond?
But isn't that where we circle back to the issue that you said is a non-starter, where we talk about the capacity then? Because we're talking about how the Nigerian army is stretched beyond its limit, where they're everywhere. They're in the south, they're in the north, they're in several theater of operations, and you have only a limited number of operatives to work with. So, and you just talked about the landmass itself.
Yes.
I mean, when something is happening in, say, point A, before you mobilize and get to that point, we understand that the terrain as well as the proximity itself is a logistical nightmare. So at what point do we, square the circle and say we have a logistical challenge with manpower, capacity, equipments and things like that, but also operationally, we are not adapting fast to the changing times? And also, I'd like you to give me your take on how communities now are resorting to self-help, whether it's in Bauchi, whether it's in Adamawa, whether it's in Katsina. I mean, the Katsina Community Watch was just launched, just yesterday. Give me your thoughts on these non-state actors like the civilian GTF, the hunters, the vigilante groups coming in to augment in terms of the security arrangements, so that we can at least have some semblance of law and order in vulnerable communities.
So the first part of your question, that's in terms of capacity, improving that capacity and number and so on. I think a very long time the Nigerian state has accepted that we are on demand. We're on in terms of numbers. Is it the security? That's the police.
The ratio itself.
The ratio is very low, or is very high. Police to the citizens,
yes.
And even the military. There is that acceptance that there is that, and that's where there is call for more recruitment, and there is call for more equipment, and there is call for more funding. Even though some of these things is relative, but however, a lot of it is being done. in terms of increasing the number of the security operatives, that's the military and the police and so on. But also to the next question, where, for example, we have seen a kind of a resort to community-based protection or local-based protection kind of arrangements. In entirety, there's nothing wrong with that. Policing is community-based by nature. And that's why when you are giving example, you are saying that we have to look out for the new people in our communities. That is community. It starts from the smallest level of the community, which is the family, then grows into the village and so on and so on. So if we are to secure our entire nation, we have to start from that level. Now, what we have to ensure is that the non-state, as you call them, but let's call them, instead of saying non-state actors, but they are community-based policing architecture that works with the state to ensure more security. Because the state cannot employ everybody that will cover all those bits. So you have these that are not armed most of the time, or they are within the community, and they tend to protect or know the community more, and tend to have a stake involved in the protection of that community. So what you find out is that there must be, what I should call for is a framework within which they should operate. Because if you train people, you arm them to a certain extent, and you leave them without a framework, without a legal basis, without training and retraining, to ensure that you are creating another problem, a layer of problem.
But what does that do to the scale? If you look at the scale of the problem and the scale of the solution, because with just the Nigerian army, the Nigerian police, the civil defense and other paramilitary outfits, the problem got out of hand. But with the inclusion of these non-state actors, whether it's the vigilante, the hunters, the problem is still on the rise. So it does appear that the scale of the problem is outweighing the scale of the solution.
No, I think it's wrong to say that, because when we say that
students were just yesterday kidnapped in Nasarawa State.
As bad, that is very bad,
right?
And our hearts goes to anybody.
So are you saying the problem is not on the rise?
What I'm saying is that the problem is being handled. And how do I mean that?
Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question.
What is the question?
Is there a resurgence?
Okay, the resurgence is relative. And to a large extent, yes, there are incidences that are happening. And just like in everywhere, there will be challenges here and there. Like I gave you the analogy of a football match. You don't hear of the numbers of attempted attacks that are thwarted every day. You hear of the 4 that have been kidnapped and so on and so forth.
But why don't we have all of those information? Because what it's bridging this gap is the lack of information that we have. I think it just recently we started hearing about soldiers, neutralized bandits, neutralized Boko Haram insurgents and all of that. Is there a reason why we don't get some of this reports out?
So 2 things happen. One, yes, some of this information are not, there is the basis of need to know. Okay, yes, for morale and so on and so forth, people need to know that these attacks have been toward. But sometimes in saying that, you are giving them, you're giving a hint to those that are planning. Maybe it could compromise other actions that you're going to do. So what do you do?
Those are classified information now?
Yeah, to a large extent. So you can give out some of them to a large extent that will not compromise your plans, your future plans or your future operations. And again, sometimes it's also the media has a big role to play in this. Now the media, by their nature, want to amplify what is the bad news.
You mean telling people what actually happened?
No, when I say amplify, I didn't say don't tell people what actually happened, but I say how do you amplify? Why don't you tell them when 20 people that an attack that was supposed to take place was curtailed? Why don't you?
That's because we don't get the information.
What we know.
Yeah, but some of them, the military, for example, and I'm not speaking on behalf.
You're not suggesting that we're trying to undermine the efforts of the security.
No, and this
because that's how it seems.
No, what I'm trying to say is that it's a two-way traffic here. That whereas the attacks that happened are on front page, boldly written, just below the mast of the newspaper and so on and so forth. The other part, when the military briefs you on 22 of people that were neutralized, and so where does it appear?
So, it appears on the front page.
So let me get this.
I'm not.
It's either you're accusing the media of imbalance, or you expect the media to be a propaganda arm of the Nigerian.
No, what I'm saying, first of all, I have to also put again this caveat. I'm not representing the military. Yes, I'm a retired officer.
Oh, we understand your bias.
Then secondly, what I'm trying to say is that the media has a role, just like every member of society, to play.
So what is the role of the media now?
The role of the media is to sensitize people, first of all, to start. Now, like what you're even doing, calling analysts and trying and so on and so forth, is part of it. And I'm not in any way saying that the media, so I'm just saying that the media should look at it also in this direction. That when bad things happen and you report it, big headlines and so on and so forth, relay it over and over again. When the good happens, do the same. What it does, I'm not saying because you're the propaganda arm or you're trying to be the propaganda, because you have a duty also to the people that are watching.
I wish we could go into details of which media you're talking about, because it's a bit vague and ambiguous. Because I know that, just yesterday in the news, Captain Oya James, who's the spokesperson of Operation Safe Haven, was just giving a breakdown of the statistic, and he talked about attacks on 2 communities that were thwarted, some of the 13 arrests that they made of smugglers, fugitives, every breakdown.
And
as long as they are talking, we are reporting. I can say that unequivocally. But then again, if we can segue into one particular pertinent issue where for most Nigerians feel like, you look at the capacity of the Nigerian army, the biggest perhaps army on the continent, and the one that also has had that track record with some military interventions overseas, right? Sierra Leone and Liberia comes to mind. And for most people looking at the current situation we're going through in this country, whether it's Boko Haram or bandits or criminal activities, where the military now has been, pushed right into the middle of this conversation for providing security at an interior level, because they are naturally supposed to be the first line of defense for the country as far as exterior security threat is concerned. But however, we're seeing this overindulgence of the Nigerian military in internal affairs, where they have to provide security. You see them at checkpoints, you see them at community level in some of these military bases. Some people and security analysts believe that the military in this case over the years has been a square peg in a round hole, and that it has not adapted significantly to the guerrilla warfare that we're dealing with, where bandits are hiding in the community, where some of these security threats are there, but the military is not necessarily equipped to deal with it. And over the past decade or so, dealing with Boko Haram insurgency to date, it's safe to say that we've not seen the military 100% adapt to the current situation. Is that a fair assessment?
To a large extent, you can say that it's difficult for institutions to adapt, especially big institutions that are have doctrines and so on. And we have to be very careful for the type of military that we want. Because in as much as we have internal issues, security issues, and we want our military to adapt to those internal issues, we also have
them to remain conventional,
external aggressions, and we want our military to maintain a posture that they are able to kind of keep off external or potential external aggressors. So it's a balance between the two. And the military has been, to a large extent, try to live up to this dual role or dual mandate. When you find out that the military do joint operations with the police, with every other Nigerian security and other security agencies within the internal security space, where the police, for example, is the lead agency on that. And the military is just called in to assist when the firepower that is required is higher than what the police. So it's a two-way thing. Whereas the military is trying to adapt to this, they also have to keep a balance of the fact of their core mandate being defense of the territory against external aggression. Now that is one aspect. Then the other aspect is the fact that we have to also, over the time, develop the capacity of those that have the principal or the primary mandate of internal security. That is the police, the DSS, and so on and so forth. So it's a two-way thing and going side by side. And the military, or the security agencies, let me just not say just the military, have been very pragmatic in this. And this is what brought about the issues of the JTF and the rest and the rest. I wouldn't say that that's a superb arrangement, but it has, to a large extent, been able to curtail some of this partnership with community-based security organizations. When the military comes in, for example, you have a vague idea of the local peculiarities that are there. What do? You work with the people that are on the ground, that are community members, but you work with them with certain parameters. Tell them, do some training for them in terms of human rights, very important, so that you ensure that civilians are protected. Because the whole of this, what we're talking about is security for the population, which is civilians here. And so you do all that, offer that crash program and so on, and you rain on them certain things that they shouldn't, but they know the terrain, like the hunters in Maiduguri, for example, the civilian JTF, the KHKs and the rest, or so many groups that they are called, or even when you come to the northwest, where the NSAK and the rest and the rest, yes, they do some excesses, but sometimes they come under they help in understanding the immediate environment.
But what do you say to Nigerians, Wing Commander, who feel like, all hope is lost, who don't have confidence in the state to guarantee the safety of their lives and property, who feel the only way out is to pay levy to these bandits who are terrorizing their communities, to buy them off, and to find a way to live in peace with them, that this is their new reality now and this is the new normal. Case in point, Niger State, where local communities are being hounded, intimidated, asked to pay levy, extorted on a regular basis, especially if they want to have access to some of these illegal mining sites to make a living. This is the evil that they have to live with, and they are now normalizing relations with these bandits because they have come to terms with the fact that the government is incapable of providing security to them. What do you say to them to keep their hope alive?
This simple thing is that hope is not lost, and they shouldn't lose that hope. Now,
I'm telling you that they're losing hope.
Yeah, but I'm telling you said, what do I have to say to them? Now, the straightforward is that do not lose hope, because there is a lot coming around. And I say I have to be careful not to seem to be speaking on behalf of the military. But you started with saying, being my constituency in the past, there are some information that I'm perhaps privy to, that perhaps, and so on and so on. So based on that and what I know with the government, both at the state and the federal level, I know that every day in every meetings or whatever, people are actually thinking of the best ways to solve this. Yes, there are real problems. You look at, I don't want to go into the long that we have to look at how they came by and so on. These problems did not start today. Like I told you about the issue of human security. They were gradually and ignored for a very long time. Now it's just like fire in a cotton mill. By the time it's out there, you know that the entire down has already
So who ignored the situation now? You said they were ignored. And
yes, over the years, a lot. Governments ignored that. Governments at all levels ignored that. And we concentrated on different things. And even the security agencies seem not to have paid the necessary attention to that. And that is what we are seeing today. I'd
like to get your thought. I think when we're launching that meeting the governor of Bauchi State had with community leaders, who have captured some of these insurgents, he talked about the fact that we're keeping quiet does not mean we don't know what to do. What's your thought on that?
Well, I didn't hear that, what the governor of Bauchi State said, so I can't talk directly to what, because I didn't know the context. But when I hear...
he's talking about the federal government stepping up, that the states need their help. And also, you have to square that with how the states are saying, listen, we need state policing, we need state police, because this centralized architecture that we have with the security is just not working. We need to decentralize.
So
we need to have.
If you look at the reality on the ground, to a large extent, we're having state policing architecture, whatever name we call them. Katsina State, for example, just yesterday, day before yesterday,
that's a community watch.
No, but what do we mean by security or state police? You know, police we shouldn't have this concept. I think we're a militarized community or society. We see security as just carrying guns and some kind of hardwares and going about. No.
But that's necessary, isn't it?
That is necessary to a large extent, where the need comes to that. But state policing or community policing does not mean that the person has to carry a gun. Does not mean that the person, but the fact that, and it goes back to the issue of that, we need people at the basic level that are feeding the higher levels with information. Now what we need from the higher levels is response. Now we have to work on our response capacity or timings and the level of that response that we give. Yes, are there gaps and so on that need to be? Yes, they have to.
So do you align with the thought that police can't counter insurgency in Nigeria? Because there's this statement from a policeman one time, I think it was like 2 months ago, that police can tackle insurgency or even fight Boko Haram, and it came with a lot of backlash reactions from different Nigerians and beyond. So do you think that that can happen in Nigeria? Because you just talked about that, you know, security, protecting lives and property does not have to do with the fighter jets, the big guns, and even some of the bombs that we use in neutralizing.
Actually, using the fighter jets for insurgency in build-up areas is a misnomer. It's just that every military or every security agency uses what it has at that time to confront the challenges that are facing it. But if you use fighter jets, look at the speed, the altitude that it goes at, the likelihood that there are going to be collateral damages is very high. So there are equipments or weapons that are strategically made for that. Now back to the question that if the police can actually handle insecurity. The fact is that internal security is the baby of the police. So when the police say we can do it, yes, they can do it, but it's relative also. In this country, we compartmentalize things. I know the police is the one. Yes, the police can be the lead agency, but the police need the support of everyone. They need the support of paramilitary agencies, they need the support of the military, they need the support.
It's not a monopoly.
Yes, it's not one person, So when the police say they can do it, I guess what they're saying is that we can play the lead role in ensuring this. And honestly, some of these issues, before they escalate to a higher level, are policing issues. Okay. You understand? And that's why I say that for a long time we have ignored these policing issues until they grow up into something that the police can no longer handle. Right. Then we bring in the military.
Right, okay. I mean, you have been a military officer, even though Nigerians believe that once a soldier, always a soldier. But now you're a civilian. I mean, you're dressed as one. I don't know what you are at heart. I have a sense that you're still a military man at heart. But give me your take on, you know, negotiating with bandits, for instance, right? In Zamfara State, for instance, there's this ongoing battle between the state and the federal government, where the state is accusing certain federal government appointees or people in power at the federal level. I think one of the Minister of Information and Culture was, alleging, back and forth with the state government that, there are some back channels that are being used to negotiate with the bandits. And we've been here before, whether it's in Zamfara State, on the Matawale, or in Katsina, for instance, where we tried that. It didn't work. It always, there's always that potential of one party reneging on whatever the arrangement is. Plus, it doesn't sit well with Nigeria, that these people can maim, kill, intimidate, loot, and then they get a slap on the wrist and, they're forgiven. But give me a sense of that, the potential of a negotiation as a solution, and whether you believe in it, plus the politicization of the conversation itself, where people in power are busy accusing each other of trying to undermine, the situation.
Well, let me start with the last, which is the alleged politicization. I would say that should be a no-no. Security issues are far bigger and very important that we should not And we dare not politicize them. We should not, whether on party basis or any form of politicking that comes in. Every one of us, whether party, irrespective of party differences and so on, or ideology, must put our hands together to ensure that we solve the issue of security. Because at the end of the day, it's about the people. And we are in leadership positions to represent and to improve the lot of those people. Now, talking about negotiations with bandits and in whatever name, it's a difficult pill to swallow, but in every crisis, in every conflict, the end of it ends in a table like this. Except on a few instances whereby insurgents and the rest were militarily crushed at a very big price, because we're hearing the backlash that is coming out from Sri Lanka that we're able to do that. Most of it ends on the table. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that it's an open check for you to negotiate with everybody and anyone. Now, first of all, you must, when you're coming to the table of negotiations, you must not come with with weakness. So it should be at
negotiate from a position of strength.
So it should be at a stage whereby they have been promoted to a stage that they feel we can no longer sustain this, and they are the ones begging for leniency. Then you now put in your terms and so on and so on. What is happening sometimes is that we are quick to say we want to negotiate, kind of giving up. Now, also there are negotiations that take place when the insurgent or the group has an upper hand to a large extent. What do I mean by upper hand? In this instance, where you have students that are already kidnapped, they have a bargaining chip. Now, if they have that bargaining chip, you can negotiate for that release of those. Of course, there are going to be concessions here and there and so on and so forth. So you release for that, but we must be careful also not to have blanket immunity. Because when mass atrocities happen, it's very difficult to hold everybody accountable. However, those with the highest responsibility on the other side must be held accountable. So what do I mean? For example, in the case of the Northeast, there has been the case of the surrenders, Boko Haram surrenders. Now, what do you do with thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people that have surrendered and that have committed one atrocity or the other? Now, that comes up in a lot of, personally what I feel is that there are a lot of things to borrow from. We can go back to community justice because these people came out from the communities. Now, the only way you can assuage people because it's a neighbor, civil war in terms of this crisis, mass atrocities, is neighbor attacking the neighbor. I know the person that killed the other, that killed either my son, my daughter, my wife, and so on and so on. We know them, the person knows that person. So if we say that we're going through the normal judicial system that is far away from those people that feel hurt, whatever happens, there is no closure in this. So sometimes we have to adopt something that...
What if at the community level the people say, listen, an eye for an eye? That's the only way we're going to come to terms with this. For the institutions, I believe this will stifle the surrender initiative, because if you are a terrorist or a bandit and you realize that even if you surrender, you're going to lose your life, I don't think you'll be motivated to surrender.
So you see, that is where, when we have, and I know a lot is being done in both Borno, but Borno is going to be a test case for so many other places. Now, when crisis or when conflicts end, there must be some holding to accountability. There must be some accountability. But also there must be some level of where do we draw the line to move forward, to kind of say, to kind of restore the society back to where it was, and kind of evolve programs and strategies that ensure that people come back together again, forgive one another, and move on. Right? So this thing, which is not new anyway, it's not a novel idea, but we can apply it here, is to say that those with the highest responsibility are held accountable. Now, all the foot soldiers that, a lot of them are even victims, actually, of this themselves.
So what would you say to ransom payment now? Because just recently, the National Security Advisor talked about, giving ransom to these people will empower them. But let's not forget that individuals have been pushed to the limit where they have to pay ransom for their loved ones to be released. Take, for instance, the core members that were kidnapped recently. Some of them have been released, and according to their families, they've paid ransom. And not forgetting that one of the issues that the Zamfara state government, or when governments go to these people for negotiation, we cannot strike out totally ransom payment. How do you see this helping solve the issue of insecurity? Is there an end to all of this?
So ransom payment is outlawed. It's not permitted by government, and so on and so forth. However, there is what is there, the law, and there is what reality. If we're speaking to, we know, everybody here amongst us know one or two persons that have paid ransom to have their loved ones released. And this is where the state has to match its words with actions. If you are saying people should not pay ransom, then you must ensure that when something, first of all, try to prevent this from happening. Make sure nobody is kidnapped. Make sure everybody is going to go about their businesses, and be sure that they are protected. Now, if you're not able to do that, or when there are instances where this is not achieved, then you must assure us that when our loved ones are kidnapped, you will be able to walk the talk with us and bring them back safely. Now, until that confidence is given to the people, I tell you, in reality, people will continue to pay. So it's left on the side of government to ensure that they step up and ensure that when they say don't pay, they actually are going to bring back those loved ones to them.
Okay. Wing Commander, as much as we love to continue, we're going to have to anchor the conversation here. Very interesting getting your thoughts on some of these issues. But also, I think to your point earlier, much of it has to do with the non-kinetic, addressing structural issues like poverty, unemployment, which are some of the push factors that allow for this crime and criminality to continue, permeating in our polity. And I mean, he's been using a lot of football analogy, and I would say that he looks like an Eden Hazard who is retiring too early in the prime. I bet the military misses your contribution. But then again, as you said, we're living in very dynamic and changing times. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for your
Thank you for having me today. Thank you.